You know the name Rosa Parks. You were never taught the name Claudette Colvin. That was not an accident. On March 2, 1955, a 15-year-old girl named Claudette Colvin was riding home from school on a city bus in Montgomery, Alabama. The bus driver told her to give up her seat to a white passenger. She had been studying the Constitution in school that week. She had been learning about her rights as an American citizen. She put her hands on the seat in front of her, pressed her back against her own seat, and said no. She was not the first person to refuse. She would not be the last, but she was there, on that bus, on that day, 9 months before the moment that history decided to remember. The driver called the police. 2 officers boarded the bus. One of them, by Claudette's account, kicked her in the leg when she would not move. She was handcuffed. A 15-year-old girl in school clothes, handcuffed on a city bus in front of the other passengers and dragged off. She was taken to the city jail and charged with violating segregation laws, disturbing the peace, and assaulting a police officer. The assault charge was for resisting when they tried to physically remove her. She was 15 years old. She was crying and she was furious, and she did not stop saying that her constitutional rights had been violated, all the way to the jail. The civil rights leadership in Montgomery knew about her immediately. The NAACP, the Women's Political Council, the network of Black activists and lawyers and organizers who had been watching the bus system for years and waiting for the right moment to mount a legal challenge, they knew. Jo Ann Robinson, a professor who would later help organize the Montgomery Bus Boycott, said that Claudette's case was exactly what they had been looking for. The legal team looked at her case seriously as the foundation for a direct challenge to bus segregation. And then they looked at Claudette Colvin herself, and they decided she was not the right person to be the face of the movement. She was 15. She was from a poor family, not the middle-class respectability that the leadership believed would make the case more sympathetic to white moderates and the national press. And she was pregnant, a fact she had not yet disclosed publicly, but which the community knew, and which the leadership feared would be used to discredit her and the cause she represented. They did not say this to her directly, not in those terms. They moved on. They kept watching the buses. They kept waiting. 9 months later, on December 1, 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery city bus. Parks was 42 years old, a trained activist with the NAACP, a woman of deliberate dignity and unimpeachable personal history. She was, in the assessment of the movement's leadership, the right person, the person whose case could be made into a national story without the complications that Claudette's case carried. The Montgomery Bus Boycott began 4 days later. It lasted 381 days. It ended with the Supreme Court ruling that bus segregation was unconstitutional. It launched Martin Luther King Jr. to national prominence. It is one of the foundational events of the American civil rights movement. Claudette Colvin's name appears nowhere in the official history of that moment. She was, in fact, one of 4 plaintiffs in Browder v. Gale, the federal lawsuit that actually produced the Supreme Court ruling desegregating the buses. Her testimony was part of the legal record that changed the law. She was there, in the courtroom, doing the work. But by then, the story had been written, and the story did not have room for the 15-year-old who had gone first. She moved to New York as a young woman, worked for decades as a nurse's aide, raised her son, and lived a life that was almost entirely invisible to the history books that told the story of the movement she had helped start. She was interviewed occasionally by historians and journalists, and she was consistent in what she said. She did not regret what she had done. She believed it had mattered. She wished more people knew. She was right on all 3 counts. In 2021, at the age of 81, Claudette Colvin went to a court in Alabama and had her juvenile arrest record expunged, officially cleared, as if it had never happened. The charge of violating segregation law was removed from her record because the law it referenced had itself been ruled unconstitutional. It took 66 years for the state of Alabama to acknowledge, in the only language the law understands, that she had not done anything wrong. She had known that since March 2, 1955. She had said so, clearly and loudly, all the way to the jail. The civil rights movement made a calculation. It looked at a 15-year-old girl who had done a brave thing and decided that she was not useful enough, not respectable enough, not the right kind of symbol for the story they needed to tell. That calculation was not without logic. Movements operate in the real world, with real constraints, and the leadership understood things about public perception that Claudette did not. The strategy worked. The buses were desegregated. The movement advanced. But Claudette Colvin sat down first. She was 15 years old, and she sat down first, and she was right, constitutionally, morally, historically right. And the movement she helped ignite decided she was not the right face for the fire she had started. History wrote her out. She stayed anyway. Her name was Claudette. She sat down so others could stand up. She was 15 years old, and she was not wrong, and she was not afraid, and she was there first. Remember her name.